Hi everybody, I'm Christina Mascari. I am a furniture flipper, and in today's video I'm going to show you why I'm reaching for this paint sprayer more than I'm reaching for a paintbrush lately. I'm doing a head-to-head comparison, one end table with a brush and one with a sprayer, so you can see the difference for yourself. I'm going to be covering the benefits of using a paint sprayer versus using a brush. I picked up these two nightstands and I'm going to show you a side-by-side comparison. I got these end tables off of Facebook and they're not super high quality furniture. So this is going to be a great way to show you a sprayer versus a brush. Each thing is getting its own dresser so I can show you the real difference. My friends at Wagner are sponsoring today's video, so I'm going to be using their Flexio 3500. This is a brand new one, but if you've been around my channel for a while, I have been using this sprayer all year. Mine is very, very dirty and very well loved. So I wanted to show you a clean one, what a clean one looks like. This is what comes in the kit. You have the sprayer console here that has an on and off switch. It has an air control on the top of it. And then it actually has two canisters. So this first canister is for painting walls and bigger projects, things outside like the outside of your house, decks and fences. The nozzle that you see me use the most is this detailed finish nozzle. This gives a fine finish and it's perfect for furniture. And the only control it has on it here is material flow that you can adjust. So both of these nozzles work with the turbine that this comes with and clicks in really easily. So it is an investment, but what's great is that you have two different nozzles for different applications. So it is a good investment. And both of them work in different directions. If you turn the nozzle straight up and down like this, you can paint in a vertical motion. And if you turn it to the side, you can paint in horizontal motions. And then if you turn it diagonal, you can do some fine detail work. Okay, so let's get into these furniture makeovers. Whether you're using a brush or using a sprayer, you're always going to start the same. You have to prep your pieces. You have to clean them and prep them so that the paint is going to adhere. So I always start with a good degreaser cleaner that's going to remove all the dirt, grime, and dust. And then you always need to rinse that back with some clean water. I'm also going to remove the hardware on both end tables, and then I'm going to do some repair sanding. This was really the only damage I had, this little spot on top of one of them. And then I'm going to use some wood filler and just repair any nicks and dings. This one, both of these had a lot of those wormholes that you see, and those don't look super great with painting. So I tried to fix as much as I can, and then sanded those back with a 220 sandpaper. And then I'm actually going to scuff sand both pieces. This is something that really helps with paint adhesion, and I'm using an all-in-one paint today, and I find that those all-in-one paints stick a lot better when I just give the entire surface of my furniture a good scuff sand like this. And after you're done scuff sanding, you want to clean off all that dust. I'm just using a lint-free cloth and some water to get rid of all that dust. Now the sprayer does take a little bit of extra prep here. I'm going to paint with my drawer in, so I'm just taping off the inside of my drawer so I can pull it out and get the sides of that drawer without getting any overspray on the side of the drawer. I'm also going to set up some protection for my garage so I don't get any overspray on my stuff in here. So I like to use the Wagner pop-up tents. They are pretty easy to set up. Now that I've had enough practice, I can set mine up in about 5 minutes, and it's going to protect my garage from any overspray, and I think it's a lot easier than taping up plastic. I also put it out to my YouTube community if you had any questions about sprayers, so I'm going to be answering some of those in this video. And the first one I got is, what do you do with a sprayer that gets jammed? My best advice there is to not have the jam in the first place. So use a strainer like I'm doing here, water down your paint just a little bit with this furniture nozzle. That will help. And if anything gets clogged or jammed, you can just take that sprayer top portion off and rinse it out with some water. But again, proper prep and doing that straining of your paint is going to help it not get stuck. Okay, so going over key features of this Flexio 3500, again, I have the on-off switch, I have the material flow on the side of the nozzle, and then I have my airflow on top. For this particular silk all-in-one paint, I have used this a lot, and I know my settings that I like for this is pretty open on that material flow, and then I like to have my air setting around a 4 or a 5. Like I said, I first tried a sprayer about 2 years ago, and the more and more I work with it, the more comfortable I get. And it's just something that you have to pick up and try. But trust me, it is not as hard as you think it's going to be. My top tips for working with a sprayer is that you want to be slow and steady. Don't go too fast, don't go too slow, or your paint's going to pile up. Just get a nice steady stroke down. You also want to overlap your passes by about 50%. So I like to aim for the middle of my nozzle to hit the bottom of my last stroke. That helps me out a lot. My next tip is to remain about 6 to 8 inches away from the furniture that you're spraying. I think when you're first starting out, you tend to pull back way further than you think you need to be, and that's just going to give you an uneven finish. So make sure you're about 6 to 8 inches away from what you're spraying. I just want to draw your attention to that little box up top that says 2 times speed. That means that I have sped this video up 2 times what it is taking in normal life. I didn't want this video to be 45 minutes long, but I also want you guys to understand that this is double time right now. So just keep an eye out in the upper corner for that. Other tips I have for you when you're spraying is that you can always start out practicing on a cardboard box if you're not ready to take it to your piece of furniture yet. I honestly always test my sprayer out on a cardboard box before I actually spray my piece of furniture every single time, just to make sure I have the consistency down and the speed down that I need. You can also start out by just putting some water in your sprayer and testing that out on a cardboard box as well. The best thing that you can do is just get practice. Do not be scared, you guys. I used to be intimidated by a sprayer, but it just saves me so much time now. And I'm just kind of obsessed with the finish that it gives that I think anybody can do it. We're back into real time on this top. I wanted you guys to see just how long it takes to do the top, but it just goes so quickly. I'm not having to re-dip my paintbrush back in my paint, and it gives such a beautiful finish, and it gives you lots and lots of coverage. Yellow does not get good coverage. I didn't know how this was going to go not having a primer on here, but the coverage on here was really great with the sprayer. The total time it took me to get this first coat done with the paint sprayer was around 8 minutes. So now I'm going to jump over to the paintbrush end table that I'm going to work on, set my little timer off here. And I'm just using a synthetic oval brush. There are several companies that sell this type of brush. It is really popular among furniture refinishers. So I thought this would be a good option to show you the coverage and the brush strokes and stuff that it creates. I did the same thing here where I watered my paint down just a little bit. This all-in-one paint, you're really not supposed to water down a bunch. It doesn't really like that because it has a top coat in it as well. So just added the same amount of water that I did with the sprayer, and then I'm just brushing this on, trying to keep my brush strokes in the same direction, watching out for those drips. That is the number one killer with using a brush, especially on a piece like this where you have tons of edges. You're going to get lots of drips. And this was just going to take forever if I had a normal time. So I have sped this up 2 times speed, and we'll see how this goes. Bored yet? I'm just kidding. So you can tell this is taking a lot longer than the sprayer took. In total, this first coat took 25 minutes, and I find that the first coat on brushing always goes faster than the additional coat, so I'm interested to see how long it's going to take me to do the second coat on this. In terms of coverage, the first coat with the brush is pretty sparse. Again, you can see all those brush strokes, lots of lines, pretty typical for a first coat. And on the first coat of the sprayer, the coverage is looking amazing. I have some holes definitely that I need to cover up on the second coat, but just the difference between the sprayer on the brush on coverage, there is a huge difference. I did the same prep in between coats for both end tables. I'm using a very fine sandpaper and just sanding in between coats and wiping back the dust. I am going to pick up the speed a little bit here on these second coats so I don't bore you to tears. It's just the same process as it was last time. You can see I'm getting even greater coverage on the second coat, and I've pulled out that drawer this time so I can get the sides and the top, and because I have that tape on there, I'm not going to get any overspray on the inside of my drawer. And this coat took the same amount as time, so 8 minutes for the second coat and then 16 minutes of total painting with the sprayer. For the second coat of the brush, I just put you in time lapse so that we could just get through the second coat. The second coat on here actually took me a little bit longer than the first coat, which is pretty typical because you're just trying to get more coverage. So the total amount of time I spent on this second coat was 35 minutes. So the total time I spent painting by hand with the brush for this end table is 60 minutes. The next community question I got is, doesn't a sprayer use a lot more paint? The paints are so expensive. What are your thoughts on that? Well, yes, you use a lot less paint when you're brushing, but my coverage is less, so I'm going to have to do additional coats here. I probably use 2 to 3 ounces of paint on those first 2 coats with the brush, and then with the sprayer I used about 12 ounces of paint, but there you're only looking at about a $10 to $15 difference, and if you buy your paints in bulk you can save your money there. So I'm saving time and the coverage is better, so for me it's worth the extra paint. My next community question is, how hard is it to clean the sprayer, particularly with an all-in-one paint? This is an all-in-one paint. My best advice to you is that you need to clean your sprayer right away. The longer you let it set, the more the paint is going to dry and cake up in there. It's really easy. You just use soap and water. You can dump everything in a bucket and completely take it apart. It's really, really easy. And I've sped this up 8 times speed, but it only takes me 5 minutes to clean out my sprayer and take it in the sink and rinse it out. And it takes me about 5 minutes to rinse out a brush and get paint out of it completely, so I don't see cleaning as a big deal. I wanted these to look like real makeovers, so I'm removing that tape from my sprayed end table, and then I'm going to add this fun hardware that I have been wanting to use for forever. I think I've had this for like over a year from Hobby Lobby, and I got these at one of their sales, and so they were only $2.50 each, and I think they look really fun with this mustardy color. So spraying is obviously faster, even if you factor in the prep of setting up the tent. It was almost like 7 times faster than painting by hand. But I also wanted to show you the coverage now. With the brush, I probably do need to go and do a 3rd coat on this, which would take me even more time. You can see the brush strokes, the coverage. You still have a lot of that wood peeking through. So this would take an additional coat to equal what 2 coats did with the sprayer. And now some close-ups with the sprayer. As you can see, the coverage is really, really good. Again, it used more paint, but I was able to do it faster. You have a smooth finish here. You don't see brush strokes. Everything is even. And doing the legs with the sprayer is so much faster than having to go around with that paintbrush for some reason. And again, the coverage is just way better. And this brings me to my last question. Does the cost and complexity justify the speed and finish achieved? And in my opinion, it absolutely does. And what I'm basing that off of is 9 times out of 10, I am reaching for my sprayer to refinish projects versus a brush. And that is a huge change for me. So I know that there's value in it. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you have any more questions that I can answer about sprayers, please leave them below down in the comment box. I will be back soon with another video. Thanks for being here, you guys, and I will see you next time.